Well, it's me. Yes, I'm finally back. It's been a while, so let's just roll the credits. Well, hello and a very, very warm welcome back to the channel. It's been a very long time and I'm basically here today to sort of report back with what I've been doing. I'm sort of going to connect this from the PAGS channel as well, Pelargonium Society channel, just to update you really with what I've been up to. Now, the last couple of years, we've had an immense amount going on. Obviously, 2 years ago, we went through all the process of moving, and indeed setting up this glass house where we are here in Wiltshire. That we had a great deal of work to do on our house and we had a lot of building work done. But being an avid DIYer, it was up to me really to do the rebuild of the basic stuff inside, like installing kitchens, refitting bedrooms. We had new windows put in, which caused chaos. Done a lot of painting and decorating. Still a bit to do on that actually. In fact, in a couple of weeks' time, work starts on our bathroom, which is desperately needing to be done. That's the next project. But we're leaving all that to the professionals, so I'm not getting too involved in all that sort of stuff. So I have just been immensely busy over a 6-month period, really. This is the problem with being an avid DIYer. I do like to be quite practical, as obviously everything here probably shows to a certain extent as well. As I came towards the end of completing the kitchen towards the sort of middle part of November, I actually had a lot of Pelargonium Society work to catch up on. So I had to prepare the show schedule for this year. You had to edit the yearbook and do a few bits and pieces like that. Now, one of the first things I do want to say is that I had an enormous number of messages from people asking if my health was okay. And I do want to say that, well, as far as I know, I'm fine. Everything's great. Everything's as it normally is. So I haven't been ill. It is purely down on the fact that I've just been amazingly busy on the house. But I really do appreciate all of those messages that were coming through. I've got a nice warm cup of coffee. It's about 6 degrees in here at the moment, so I've got it closed up. I do get the sun sort of when it breaks through. It's brightening up a little bit, but it's really cold. We've had 2 weeks of very cold weather. Started around Christmas time, really hard frost, certainly the hardest frost we've had in a couple of years, which basically means the hardest frost since we've lived in this location. We moved now 16 months ago. Last winter, although it was cold, it wasn't freezing. We never had a monumental number of sort of hard frosts, had the odd one. But it was mostly cloudy and dull, so we didn't get a lot of sort of frosty weather. But, as I say, in this 2 weeks, certainly been the coldest 2 weeks that we've had for at least a couple of years. Heaters have been on. Now, one thing I have been doing is that I have only got my 2 heaters because it's a long greenhouse, 25 feet. I've got a heater at either end. But they are only this year just above frost-free. The cost of electricity in the UK is ridiculous, as anyone in the UK will know. So I've only literally got these on frost-free. It's kept the temperature just about up to above about 1 or 2 degrees. If I look at my minimum thermometer, I think it's saying 2.7, or is it 2.9, around that way somewhere at the back, where there's basically no heat getting to. So it's just about keeping the whole greenhouse just above freezing, but it's not the cheapest now to heat greenhouses with electricity, so it's just one of those things. But keeping it frost-free, they cut in when the temperature drops down below what I've got it set to, which is about 3 or 4 degrees. And it is doing enough, so that's really all you need to do. As long as you, with Pelargoniums, keeping the temperature above about 1 degree, say 1 or 2 degrees minimum, they'll be fine. So that's what I've been doing this winter, basically. Now, one thing I obviously had to do, I had to make some time to look after my Pelargoniums, because although I was very busy doing all this work in the house, I had to make sure that I was looking after my plants. So I did dedicate probably a couple of days, at least a couple of days a week, to things like potting on, looking after the plants, any potting on, cutting back, and all this stuff that you would normally do through the cycle of a year. And so I basically had to sort of carry on doing all that kind of thing. Okay, so talking about plants. Now, anybody in the UK will remember that last year, we can say now, I'm still just about getting used to saying last year, the spring and summer was ridiculously hot. So, the one problem that really did give the Pelargonium, certainly in the greenhouse, was whitefly. And I have to say, I've actually lost quite a few regals with chronic whitefly because I wasn't able to be able to give them the constant attention that I would normally give them. Whitefly totally embedded itself in a good number of my regal pelargoniums and really did make a sorry state of them. I've also heard of quite a few others suffering bad from whitefly this year. No doubt it was the heat, but I've just had to bite the bullet and unfortunately dispose of a fair number of my regals. I mean, I even did have some whitefly on some of my zonals, so that shows you how bad it was because they don't normally they don't like the texture of the leaves on zonals. Right, so I'm going to take the camera off the tripod and we'll have a little look round. Now, one thing that would be really helpful for the channel would be for you to subscribe. You only need a YouTube account to do it. So click that subscribe button, please, and also put a like on the videos if you like them, because it really does help the channel. Thanks very much indeed. If we go sort of door end, down one side and up the other, probably the easiest thing to do. Here is my new little propagator that I bought. And it's very, very low wattage. It's only 8 watts. It's a Stewart one, so it's not too bad. I'm keeping the lid suspended just because of the time of year it is. I don't want everything to get sort of damp in there. I took those at the end of November and they have rooted. There's a couple of Stella Venentes, which is an Italian Stella Pelargonium, and Formosum called Thessalonica, which is a Swedish variety, I think. I just basically, here's Stella Venente, and I had some really, really good sort of breaks coming out the main stem. I want to grow this up as a standard. So I took 3 of them off and they've all rooted. I just checked, the roots are starting to come out the bottom. But it's only 8 watts. It's only probably at about 15 to 20 degrees, if that. So they're quite happy in there. I give them a little bit of a water. There's a nice little dip in the middle, where I drip a little bit of water into. So they're fine. I'm going to just leave them there until the weather changes. It's meant to be getting milder next week. So I may pot them on next week. As I said, it's the 9th of January today, so, you know, the light levels will be starting to increase. You'll start to notice it in a couple of weeks. I'll start to move a few bits and pieces on then. Now, a plant here, this is white mesh, ivy leaf that I'm training up. There's 3, is there 3 or 2? Well, it might even be 1 actually. I'm just trying to look, can't remember. I think there's only 1 plant that I'm training up, and I will pot that on, maybe think about putting it in the show if it grows up. But I do like these meshed leaves. I've got a few plants with these on. It is a friendly bacterial virus, I think. It doesn't harm the plant, it just makes the leaves go a lovely sort of veined effect. So yeah, really nice. It's got a few sort of younger bicolours here. Young standards, that is a younger version of Pac Abelina. I am starting to actually grow a lot more of the actual commercial plants. Don't ask me why, it's just phases you go through, like the dark leaves. The PAC plants have always been pretty decent. A good number of them are good show plants as well, exhibition plants. So yeah, I've got a couple of them growing. Younger one here, slightly older one, just on the other side that I've shown. Also here, got a Tango White Splash, is another commercial variety that I'm training up as a standard. That was a little bit buckled, so it's all tied in to try and straighten it up. Again, I'll perhaps do some more videos about straightening up stems. on the Pags channel. Now, with regard to breeding this year, I was able to get a few seed from the Regal Ada Green quite early. This is why I was able to get them sown, because it was before my time was called upon to do this work in the house. But I've got 5 seedlings. I did have another one actually, but it rotted in all the damp we had in the autumn. Autumn was very wet. Be interesting to see how they develop. Now I've got some young sort of standards of the Regal Nicola Buck, which is a big, strong growing butch plant. Huge blooms, quite like those. I was able to get 4 cuttings from that. And we've got various other bits and pieces. I've got a Gosbrook Susanna there, which is one of mine. The blooms are always a bit more sort of subdued. They're not as vibrant as they are in the main growing season. So, but that one's blooming. I'm letting it go. Again, time is something that I haven't had a massive amount of, but I'm keeping everything clean. Regals here, earmarked for the show. These are, I did manage to get some cuttings of strawberries and cream quite early in the season. And I've got a few of them. But as I said, any work that I was able to achieve was all done really in the first half of the year, before it all kicked off with the house. The nice white Colin Martin, these are all being grown as Floribunda plants. The Pelargonium Society show this year is being held at Rosemore down in Devon. Now, something I did decide to do, just looking down there, I really didn't want to pack the greenhouse out with large plants. So I've got an Orset there, and that's Pelargonium San Francisco, which is a primary hybrid. I've just got some youngsters of those, which are growing on. They'll certainly get quite sizable this coming year. But I had 2 huge versions of this that were outside, and I just thought, I just haven't got the room. I don't want to crowd the greenhouse out. I did manage to get some cuttings of the show-winning plants in Cuthbert. Please go over to the Pags channel if you want to know a little bit about that, because I'll talk about that on the show video. This was grown by a chap called Ray Weeks, who won the Best in Show this year at the Pelargonium Society National. Came from nowhere really. Brilliant plant that he had, but I've managed to get a couple of cuttings from it because he let us sort of raid his plant just prior to leaving the show. So I did get 2 cuttings. One I'm going to grow as a standard, but it's a little one there. Bit of bloom here and there. That's Sparks, large basic zonal, again grown as a standard. You may have seen this before. Now up here, this is an Orset seedling. Now on the Pelargonium Society, I went through a whole series of trying to hybridise from Orset. It's really difficult to get seed from. But I had a bee cross this year, early in the season, and I did get some seed. There were 3 seeds, 2 didn't make it. Well, I don't think 1 germinated actually, but I've got 1, and that one's growing quite nicely. So it will be nice to see how that develops, or is developing quite well, how it flowers. So that's going to be quite exciting. Now all along in the front of my benches are standards. This is a Brian West plant, Silver Delight, bicolour, again being grown up as a standard. That should develop fully this year. Always take these dying leaves off, which you will get during the winter. Just snap them back. There they are, nothing too bad. And that one. The secret with the bicolours and tricolours is they really do not need a lot of water during the winter. I'm only watering them once every 2 to 3 weeks at the most. The green leaves need a bit more. They're being watered probably once a week. But again, with nothing more than a little dribble at the base of the plant in the saucer. Regals are needing a bit more. These are some youngsters, but they do grow during the cooler months of the winter. So I'm giving them, I might be watering them sort of a little bit less than once a week, maybe once every 4 or 5 days. Got some young basic zonals over the back there, and a nice gold leaf there. That one is called Ivy John. It's a vibrant red, but at this time of year the colour is muted, of course, in the midwinter. Happens to all pelargoniums. If you get pelargoniums that seemingly have got a completely different colour to what you think they're normally like, it's just the dullness of the winter months. Again, more show work over here. That is our test plant, and I'll talk a little bit more about that on the Pelargonium Society channel. It did quite well in the show as well. I talk about that in the show video. Right, so we're coming over the back. That's my Doris Shaw standard, and I don't think it's actually doing that well. I think I've lost a few stems on that. I'll probably keep it going, see how it develops, but it is quite old now. It's about 6 years old. I mean, normally they should be okay, but there's some dead bits. Some of these stems are dead. Again, it was last year with all the white fly. I had to cut a lot of it off. I've got a Frank Headley standard there, and that needs a clean up. I admit that looks a bit rough. Lots of sort of scented varieties and Regal standards going on here. I've got a Lady Plymouth standard here, which I'm quite pleased about. I've always wanted to grow a Lady Plymouth standard, and I never had the time or the thought to do it before. But that's developed quite well over this last year, so I'm quite pleased about that. Pink Dolly Varden standard, amongst others. I mean, there's quite a number of Regal standards and large Regal pots going on over the back there. We've got a Mrs. Parker bloom here on this Mrs. Parker standard. This is a big old boy, this one. Now here is a young standard of the sort of butterfly leaf Angel Sarah Dawn. I'm very pleased that I've been able to get a good standard developing on that. Again, more commercial varieties. That's a Pack Aristo Purple Stripes. That's going on quite well. Got a couple of bold cherub dwarfs that I've just let the blooms carry on. One of the problems that you can get, of course, in the winter is that if you snap a stem off, it will potentially create problems with getting damp into the stem that you're breaking it from. Down into there, you can see you could break that stem off, and then you get a load of damp in that stem and it would make it rot. And that's one of the reasons I'm leaving these blooms on the plants. One plant I will show you. Here is a plant that's looking pretty sad, and I've overwatered that. I know I have. It has only got a small saucer, so it didn't get a great deal, but it was enough to overwater it, and I think I'll probably lose that. I'm sort of waiting to see if it recovers, but if it doesn't, it'll have to be chucked. More standards then, as I come up the other side. That is Toscana Frisia Bright Red. I really quite like this one. Grows quite strongly. It's got a large bloom, and it's really done very well. A good example of a large growing Formosan hybrid. This is one called Thessalonica, and it was actually developed by a Swedish nursery, I think. Can't remember the name of it now. But lovely plant, very, very vibrant red blooms. Over here we got the bronze leaf. That's the red version of a Denso Tintomara, another Swedish variety. But that's the solid red version. Tintomara, the normal Tintomara is a spotted job, but that's the solid red version, as is, I don't know where I mentioned it, the standard of it that I've got over there. Now I've got a new young Phyllis standard here, and here is the big boy of it. That's grown very well, I do have to say. I gave it a good trim back in the early autumn. Now the thing to remember with Phyllis is that it is almost in the autumn. It is almost deciduous. It drops all its leaves, and during that period, you have to be really careful not to overwater it. If you do, you can have all sorts of problems, and you'll lose it. But yeah, it needs very, very little water in the autumn, but it's just started drinking a little bit now, and you can see it's just responded to it with a lot of new young leaves. But it is strange how it is almost semi-deciduous, meaning that it drops all its leaves in the autumn. It's quite a strange phenomenon, but it definitely does that. I've grown these for a number of years, but that's now about 3 years old, 4 years old. Standard of Mrs. May last. Popular bicolour Stella, always grows quite nicely for me. I've got some quite big baskets of this coming on as well. There's one of them. There's another one over the back there. So a few more other show plants, bits and pieces here, and more youngsters. I mean, it makes you sound as if I have actually done quite a bit this year, now I come to think of it. These are seedlings from a commercial variety. They really stuck out, and I took the seed from them and they germinated quite quickly, so we'll have to see how they go. They have got a smashing zone, which for the winter is really prominent, so I'm very hopeful that I'm going to get something fairly decent from them. We'll have to see how the bloom goes. Never seen the bloom before, so we'll perhaps share that as the spring comes along. The vibrancy of Crystal Palace Gem, got a couple of these really sticking out like a sore thumb. My ever-growing Rushmore Spotted Shrimp, which I did cut back really hard actually in the autumn. That's doing okay. Rosebud Supreme, which you can probably see here now from this side. I have actually stripped that down about 3 times during the winter and it still leaves up, leaves up. Absolutely crazy, grows like mad and is nuts. So we're almost at the end. There's an Ashby there, another scented, lovely scented. Certainly on one of either this channel or the Pags channel, I'm going to talk about some of my favourites. I have got some really old established favourites that I do really like, and Ashby is one of them. Right, so there we are. We've had a little look round my glass house just to see what's going on. As I say, I just do love growing standard grown plants, the taller ones. It is just one of my afflictions. Ugh, oh dear. But I just like the challenge of growing them really. I find it really interesting. I mean, going into the future, as I've said, this year I will start to get more and more time to do videos. I think going forward there'll be a lot more of the shorts there, something that are becoming very popular on social media, both on YouTube and my own Mr. Pelargonium Instagram account. So that's probably going to be the way forward, certainly as the season develops and we begin to get, a bit more going on. Flowers developing. I've got 1 or 2 blooms, as you've been able to see, but that's probably the way I'm going to go going into the future. So there we are. Yeah, it's great to see you again. Always remember to go over to the Pelargonium Society channel to see more of my tutorial stuff. And as I mentioned, I'm going to get the show video out in the next few days. So I'll see you again very, very soon. Goodbye for now.